Hi everyone. I am super excited to be teaching at Zenit Yoga in Trondheim, Norway, May 31st to June 2nd. I'm going to be offering a series of workshops that introduce somatics, embodiment, embodied anatomy, which is going to include some of our embryological beginnings, which play such an important role in who and how we are today. And we're going to take all of that and we're going to infuse it into our yoga practice. So what I thought I would do, because you might be saying, that sounds really interesting, but what is that? What I thought I would do is to create a series of videos to take you through some of the concepts and the practices that we will be exploring and experiencing. So this first video is all about pelvic halves. So we don't have a pelvic bowl. We actually have two pelvic halves, and that is established in our embryonic beginnings. So all of those expressions of movement and how we grow and develop in those very early places can still give us a lot of information on how we are really designed to move in our adult bodies. So I invite you to just stand Tadasana, and we're going to find the feet. Now, this is in a workshop called Keystones and Cornerstones, where we're also going to look at the skeletal system and how we can align through that for really easeful asana. So finding those feet, we call them tripod feet. Hands are on these hip bones. Our actual hip joint is in here. It's actually much further in. And now these pelvic halves are communicating through the front. They actually communicate through the pubic symphysis. It's the spine that communicates with the legs and the back. And that's this beautiful, mobile, stable relationship and how we transfer force. And I'm going to really dive into all of this in the workshop. And this information is so important for spinal health, for freedom in the pelvic floor, which is also that Muladhara, that area of our root chakra. So now from Tadasana, we're going to just take one foot back into a lunge. And if you have your hands on your hips, can you notice how they've done something different? We can't square our hips. Those joints, they're meant to rotate. And then we can just take the arms up. So there's a beautiful spiral that's happening through the pelvis all the way up to the spine. And we could add a lovely little opener of the heart and then step back in. We can also explore this in Virabhadrasana, so our warrior poses. So now I have this nice wide-legged position here, and my hips are communicating, and they're doing a similar thing, but they're actually quite separate. And they're communicating together through the pubic symphysis. My legs have a slight internal rotation, and guess what that means? So do your pelvi. I've created a word. There's fungi, so pelvi. So your pelvis is actually spiraling in a little bit more, getting a little bit more closed in the front and opening in the back. And isn't that a lovely thing to know if we're going to move into this forward bend? The tail can reach out. And then releasing all the way down, nice and deep into the hip socket. And let's roll up. And there's a relationship through the feet, all the way up to this pubic symphysis, and it continues up. Now we can turn the front foot and back foot. We align, heel, right to the center of that foot. And one more time, we don't square the hips. That's very like single plane. We are beautiful, spiralic, very alive beings. So we can begin this Virabhadrasana 1 by spiraling through the foot. You have spiraling bones. We're going to look at all of this in these workshops. And then we spiral. What's happening is this leg, this hip is going back. This hip is going forwards. There's a rotation. It's not huge, that wouldn't be good, but there's a rotation. So there's a clear pathway for the energy to travel, the rebound of the earth, the gravity moving through us, and our own energetic pathways in our own bodies. So once we spiral this hip, then how do we come to the front? We continue to spiral through the spine. So the tail, which is separate, we'll talk about that. This tail turns, and then that energy flows up through the rest of the body. And here we are, Virabhadrasana 1, with this beautiful spiraling and connection. And then we can unspiral. There are even earlier patterns underlying this, which we will also go through. And then we could move into a little extended side angle. This also has a spiral in it. So we can open the hips a little bit more, but then we spiral through the torso, we spiral through the spine, and we can always come further down and open a little bit more. And you can do lots of different variations with your hand, but we're just focusing on the hip. So we take a nice little yield and push and bring yourself up, return that foot, and then we can just take a little walk in. If you put your hands on your hips, follow how your hips are moving with your legs. Why? Because we have beautiful pelvic halves that embryologically grew with your legs and feet. I hope you enjoyed this, and happy practicing with your beautiful pelvic halves. I hope you can join me in May.